So the future value, in terms of the discussion with Lily, the future value is whatever the value of that principal is after I earn a return, which is the interest payment in the simple example, and the future value, is equal to the principal times the cumulative interest payments. That's what that simple equation represents. Okay, let's take a concrete example. And make the principal $100, the interest rate, let's make it 5% per year. And what is the future value 1 year from now? And that future value is easily computed, just like the simple example of $1 plus a rate of return of 50%. It's a very simple calculation. That future value is going to be $105. What about the future value 10 years from now? Now we have to accumulate all of those interest payments, and in doing so, that simple algebraic equation is going to be represented here as the future value FV10 is the future value 10 years out. And all I'm doing is accumulating the interest rates payments over each year of that 10-year horizon. And that turns out to be $162.89 if, and abstracting from the question about inflation and trust and all the rest of it, this would be the value in year 10. Now, what we've just gone through is compounding. That is to say, we're taking an initial value and we're compounding it forward to some future date. What about moving in the opposite direction? Namely, taking some flow at a future date and determining what that future value is today. Right? That's just reverse engineering the compounding equation we just went through. Right? So, it's a reverse of compounding, and it shows how much a person must invest today to achieve a specific value at some point in the future. And it's the present value of the future payment, and the simple formula for present value, and the use of the words make good sense, right? It's the present value of some future flows. What is it worth today? And that is just solving the former equation with regard to compounding and now solving it for present value, and the present value is the principal, right? Okay. All right. Let's look at another simple example. If the interest rate is 5% per year, and I want to know what is the present value of $105 received 1 year from now? All we're doing is reversing the discussion, or pardon me, the computation we did for the simple example of compounding. Now we're taking the 105 and discounting it back to its present value. We already know that's $100, right? And here we are showing the solution for the present value. What is the present value of $162.89 received 10 years from now? And now the formula is just slightly more complicated, but it's the same basic concept, right? Okay. Now, as I've already explained, why do we care about the time value of money? And this is because most environmental policies or projects or investments in public goods generate flows of cost and or benefits at different points in time. And if you give me the different points in time and I don't have any way of being able to compare dollars for the year 2015 versus the year 2020, how can I go about making a choice? Right? And what is typically done in benefit cost analysis, you could, by the way, you can accumulate it to any point in time, but if you want to achieve comparability, you've got to take all of the flows and put them at a fixed point in time. We'll see in a moment. Ultimately, from the standpoint of what's in the interest of public policy or what's in the interest of total society, we're going to compare the present value of all the costs we might incur versus the present value of all the benefits that might be generated. Right? Now, the net present value. The net present value is the present value of all the benefits less the present value of all the costs. And if we're rational, we want that difference to be as large as possible. If we had a benign social planner, the social planner would be in the business of maximizing NV and PV. Right? Okay. Let's take an active learning example and make this all concrete. Let's suppose your parent comes to you and says, gee whiz, I need your advice. I understand you're an undergraduate at Berkeley and you're taking an economics course, and I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm going to invest in double-painted windows. Okay? And the cost that I'm going to incur right now is, my vendors told me it's going to cost me $4,047. Current cost. Right? So I don't have to do any discounting or accumulation or compounding with regard to that cost. But if I make that investment, I talk to PG&E and my utility bill will fall by $744 a year. Okay? And the opportunity cost of my money, now notice I've introduced a new concept just now. The opportunity cost of my money is 5%. What does that mean? Somebody interpret that statement for me. Some volunteer determine that statement. If no volunteers. Okay, Justin, you got it. You've jumped well beyond my question, Justin. You're right. Everything you said is right, but you didn't listen to the question. The question is, what is the opportunity cost of my money, given this fact? That's just, what is the opportunity cost of my money, and what does it mean in this context? By the way, for most of us, money is a scarce resource, right? Right? I mean, maybe some of you, that's not true. Okay, well, what is that? Wait, just give him a chance. Come on, Justin. What is the opportunity cost? Given the facts I've given you right now, what is the opportunity cost of money for your parent who's asking you to assist her or him in making this decision? Right. And, for example, whatever, they can put it in a savings account, they can invest it in T-bonds, they can invest it in muni bonds, whatever, but they have an opportunity to invest that $4,000 not in these $4,047, not in purchasing these double-paned windows, but instead investing it in their other options, which then becomes their opportunity cost, right? So the way to think about the interest rate, it's the opportunity cost of whoever's making the decision, because it's what they could use those scarce funds for elsewhere. Okay? Are we on the same page? Right. Okay, now an additional fact, and this comes back to what Justin just said, how long will this be of value to your parent? And the parent informs you that the last child is going to be leaving 7 years from now, and they're getting the hell out of that house, right? So they're moving on, right? So it's 7 years. They care about 7 years. The question is, should you advise your parent to make the investment or not? Visit with your neighbor, and then tell me what the answer is. If I what?
Are you taking into consideration that the house might be worth more because you...
Good question. You say that until I finish, and then you can say there's one important missing element, because that's not here. Okay, that's true. Because if the value of the house 7 years out is worth, say, $500 more because I have these windows than it would be without the windows, I'm not going to take that into account. Yes? No, you're not paying that extra, but you're foregoing that. Because instead of taking that $4,047 and purchasing this, I would use it for some other purpose, and I get 5% return on it. Okay? Yes, yeah, right. So, Jeff, what's the answer? Well, just tell me how to do it. I don't expect you to know necessarily numbers. And what do you suspect it is? You don't know. Okay, does everybody agree with what Jeff said? Jeff, you have to speak up. Did you all do it the same way? He did? He put a little different wrinkle in it. I would have done it slightly differently. But you can get the same answer with regard to how he did it. This is the present value of the benefits each and every year. And I want to discount those back to the beginning of the period, the horizon, at the beginning of the 7 years. And what we've done here is we've had to discount the $744 that I received in the way of savings the first year, same thing the second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, sixth year, and then the seventh year. And that gives me a present value of the benefits of $4,305. I think you took, as I understood you correctly, you were doing the discounting on the basis of the cost, right, not the benefits. But the cost is the cost, and that's right up front. So why would you have to do that, right? Make sense? Okay. All right. So, and because the present value of the cost is I just pay one shot, I pay that vendor right up front, the $4,047, and lo and behold, taking into account the opportunity cost of money, the net present value is positive. So what are you going to advise your parents? What's the advice that you give? Somebody said what? Go for it. You should advise them to do it, right? Right. And what's missing here?
Value house. There's a benefit to the next buyer.
In other words, when a willing buyer comes in and sees that you have this investment that you're energy efficient, they realize they're going to have savings going forward, and they'll pay you some increment for your house as a result of that superior energy efficiency. Is that your point? Okay. Okay, the bottom line is the net present value is greater than zero, and thus the homeowner should make the investment. Okay, now to illustrate how important the interest rate is here, and this is in your textbook, what is on this vertical axis is present value, and what's on the horizontal axis is the time to maturity. So if you look, for example, at an opportunity cost of money, suppose that's 8%, or interest rate is 8%, you'll see that when we get out to 60 years, that future value in present value terms is worth nothing, right? Because the opportunity cost is so high at 8%, you're not going to enter into that time profile. And if I look, suppose the interest rate is only 2%. Now, the present value, if I come up to this particular time profile, coming at 60, where at an interest rate of 8%, there is no present value with regard to flows at year 60. But if the interest rate is only 2%, I come up here, and it turns out the future value of $1,000 is very positive. It's a little more than $300, right? So that shows how sensitive the present value is to some future value as interest rates change, okay? As those interest rates go up. Let's take a second example and change our prior illustration, increasing only the opportunity cost of money. Let's suppose everything is the same factually, except now the opportunity cost of your money is 10% per year. Now, what is the answer now? What's your advice to your parent with regard to this higher opportunity cost of money? Go ahead, you can visit with your neighbor. Yeah.
$144, right? And make it, you have to adjust it for every year. It's worth every separate year.
Yes.
You have to add those all up.
Yes.
All right, so maybe if we're just not fast enough, it's not like doing it wrong.
No, sure, I understand. No. What I care about is setting it up properly. I don't care about the actual property. Yeah, well, yeah, no. No, you don't have to do it. Okay, Sarah, what's the answer? Oh, you don't need the numbers. Just, yeah, go ahead. That's the answer, yeah. But you're just guessing.
No, I have to think about it.
Yes, right. But the key point is the first point that you made, namely that the benefits are now much lower than they were in the prior example, because I'm now discounting at them twice the interest rate, twice the opportunity cost of money, right? And Sarah's dead right. The owner should not make the investment, because now going through the same process, instead of dividing each of those future flows, and that's a future value, right? The savings that is generated by this homeowner, now instead of dividing by 1.05, I'm dividing by 1.1. And it makes a big difference, because now it's the present value of future benefits is only $3,622. Before it was what? What was it for the 5%? Speak up. Thank you. Exactly. So now, given that the present value of our cost is $4,047, it doesn't make sense to do it because the net present value is negative. net present value, which is the present value of benefits less the present value of cost, is a minus $425. Thus, the homeowner should not invest in that energy conservation. And it's clear that it turns on one key factor, and that is the opportunity cost of their money. And they would be better off taking that $4,047 and capturing the interest rate with regard to what their other opportunities are, and not losing that $425 by making this particular investment. All right. Now, Justin, we're going to turn and look at your concern about inflation, right? And everything we've done up till now, we've been talking about nominal dollars, not real dollars. What's the difference between nominal and real dollars? The difference is fundamentally the depreciation and the underlying value of the currency. In most cases, we're talking about dollars because we're here in the United States. If we were in France, we'd be talking about euros. If we were in Japan, we'd be talking about the Japanese yen. But the fundamental issue with regard to inflation, does the value of the currency actually depreciate over time? And yes, if there's inflation, it does. If there's deflation, the opposite takes place, right? The great fear after the financial crisis here in the United States, in fact, much of the rest of the world after 2008, there was great concern about deflation, which would mean, surprisingly, that a dollar today, just based on holding it, would be worth more a year from now, because the value of the currency is actually appreciating. That is the atypical situation. Right now in this country, the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, is running about 2.5% a year, which means that a dollar today, if I just put it in my drawer, that dollar today in terms of what goods it can purchase a year from now, if the rate of inflation is 2.5%, that means that dollar can, a year from now, only purchase 97.5 cents, right? So, in terms of measuring benefits and costs, you want to take that into account. Yes, Lily? The last slide, sure. Certainly, but yes, you can, and we will be looking at examples where you've done just where you take into account the environmental benefits associated with that increased energy efficiency, no question about it. But how many homeowners who are making this choice say, oh my gosh, I'm going to admit less carbon or whatever, I'm going to take that into account in my choice. That is an instance where you've got a decision maker who's very altruistic, who's thinking about the impact on the environment, and the only way of providing the right incentives for them to do so is to put a price on it. Right? Yes? Yes, that was his point. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we could complicate this a great deal, but it's not going to change the fundamental concept, right? Understanding the core principles. Once you understand the core principles, then you can make all sorts of complications. But first of all, we have to assimilate and embed those core principles. All right, so coming back to the question about nominal versus real values. This can be done by taking into account the real interest rate rather than nominal interest rate. What is the real interest rate? How do we compute the real interest rate? To help you with the logic and the intuition, think about the interest payments that you're getting when you invest, say, for example, in a treasury bond. You get a nominal rate of interest, right? At the end of the period, if the interest rate on the bond is 5% and you've invested $1,000, you end up with $50, right? Okay, just one second. Now, if there is inflation, that $50 at the end of 1 year can purchase less goods than $50 today. So one way of taking that into account is to compute the real rate of interest. And the real rate of interest is very simple. It's the nominal rate of interest less the rate of inflation. Yes? I was going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I should have turned to you, and then I could have had a much better presentation. In any event, so that is the real rate of interest. And likewise, all the prices associated with the value, the willingness to pay a year from now, or the willingness to pay 5 years from now, that can be put in real terms too, by just deflating everything now by the Consumer Price Index. So the message that I want to leave you with, if you're going to do all the analysis in real terms, make sure that you correct and put in real terms both the interest rate and all the prices. Don't do one and not the other, because if you do, you'll get the wrong answer. So I say here in this particular slide, you either, in doing the analysis, either use nominal prices and nominal interest rates, or you use real prices and real interest rates. And you'll get the same answer, by the way. You get exactly the same answer. Yes?
They're proportional.
Yes. If they have a constant rate of inflation, yes. Yeah, exactly. You get exactly the same answer. But if you, for example, were to use the real interest rate, but then use nominal prices on the costs and the benefits, you'll get the wrong answer. Okay? All right. Borrowing and savings. What lies behind the question about the opportunity cost of your funds and how to get the right interest rate is all based on simple financial economics. What happens with regard to most banks that operate throughout the world, they're fundamentally in the business of aggregating savings and deposits of various clients and taking all that money and lending it out, right? At least that's what they're supposed to do. And every once in a while they lose sight of what their real purpose in our society is all about. But the difference in what they loan the money out at versus what they have to pay as interest for savings or certificates of deposit or whatever